Hello everyone, so I'm a few days late to this, but I wanted to talk about it anyway, because I do think it's very, very important. Now, I'm sure people have seen the interview with Simon Harris, the tarnished, the soon to be Taoiseach again. And in that interview, he was saying it's misinformation and disinformation to suggest that, non-Irish people, say from Africa, from Asia, from other countries, get put in front of Irish people, basically get to skip the queue. Typical example, there's one woman I know in Cavan, she's waiting 13 years, and she's living all her life in Ireland. And that woman is sleeping on the couch at night time, sleeping on the couch, 13 years or so. And still no sign of a council house for her, and she's Irish, no sign of anything for her. But what I'm trying to say is, and I would love to do, and we know it, the councils know it themselves, because in all forms for council houses, they know what nationalities are going into it. And the simple reality is, Simon Howard said it's disinformation, misinformation, that Irish people left Paddy the last. And we can see it, Irish people are not blind. They can see it around their communities, etc. They can see it for themselves. It's simply the truth. But the fact of the matter, and this could be all put to bed either way, if it's lies or if it's fake or whatever we want to call it. But the simple thing Simon Howard was asked by Ben Skellin of Great Media, and by other journalists too, if it is disinformation, misinformation, why would you? Because the government have this, the local authorities have it in Cavan and Monaghan. They have what nationalities, who's in these houses. They can find easily out if they wanted to. How many people from Nigeria? How many Irish do we have? How many people from Somaliland, etc. Because they can easily find it out. They can really, really find it out very easily. It doesn't take too long. Each county council can do it in a week if they wanted to find out exactly who's who in each house. But the simple reality is, Simon Howard said no. We're not going to release it, even though the public have a right. Because we're talking about social housing here. Of course, all these social houses are built by the Irish taxpayer. And the Irish people have a right to know. And as I said, that woman that's 13 years, nearly 14 years at this stage on the council waiting list here in Cavan, she deserves it. She deserves to know about this. She deserves to know if she's been left on her own. Basically been left to lie on the couch of her own. And people that are here 5 minutes get a house. And she deserves to know, and not even that, you and I deserve to know too, because it isn't fair that somebody's waiting. Again, there's people in Dublin waiting nearly 20 years too, in some cases. And it's not right that people are waiting and patiently waiting, and somebody gets to skip the queue. And the same thing in Cavan too with the Ukrainians, and a lot of people are very upset about it in Cavan, and rightly so. And even at the time too, there was a lot of people really upset, because some people are waiting 9-10 years for council house in Cavan. It's not the worst in the country, as I say, there's some in 20 years and more. But what I'm trying to say is, the simple reality is that the modular homes were put up overnight and there was no objections, things were just railroaded. Any objections were dismissed, etc. They were all put up overnight. And in Cavan, they won't allow you to build a modular home. The council won't build any more modular homes for any Irish people, simple as that, and it's the simple reality. But the simple truth is that Simon Harris, he has the power to do this Taoiseach, and only the Taoiseach Micheál Martin, he's soon to be Taoiseach again. He could release it and prove us all wrong. He'll prove me wrong too. If he just releases it and just says, yeah, look it, here's the data from Meath, here's the data from Westmeath, here's the data from Cavan, here's the data from Mayo, and we look through all the data, we look through every council record, because the councils have it. I know rightly they do have it, because I've seen it myself, that even when you do get a council house, you ask what nationality are you. It's the simple forms, the simple basics are asked when you get a council house. Who are you? What's your name? Where do you come from? What's your nationality? What's your passport? The simple reality is it can be done. It's not like we're asking people to give us €1,000,000 or anything like that. It can be done. The state has this information. The same with crime statistics and stuff. But as I say, if Simon Harris had nothing to hide and Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil had nothing to hide, they would put it out first thing tomorrow morning. It's very suspicious saying Simon Harris would literally within a minute he's like, it's disinformation, misinformation to say this. But in the next sentence he's like, oh, I'm not going to release. We have the data, but I'm not going to release it. To prove it, because again, that would be proof. Even if it was, I would admit I was wrong too if I seen the data and the data said, yeah, I'm totally wrong 100%. But the reality is, people see it and people all know it, that it isn't the case what Simon Howard is saying. Because if they had nothing to hide, bang, it'd be the first thing up tomorrow morning in every newspaper, every front page, oh, the far right were wrong again, etc. Or something like that. The far right were doing this and the far right were doing that. But the simple reality is, and it should be released, because again, it's people are entitled to know. It's not like it shouldn't be hidden because people are paying for it. It's not like we're talking about state secrets. We're not talking about where's the Holy Grail or anything like that. We're not talking about that kind of stuff. But we're really asking, like, who's going to these houses that the Irish taxpayers paying for? It's this very simple quest at the end of the day. And the simple reality is the Irish people need to be put first in terms of housing and any resources. That's the whole identity of having an identity and having an Irish passport, having Irish citizenship. That the Irish people should come first, and nobody else should come first before Irish people. Irish people have more every right under the sun to be put first more than any other person in the world. And so it's the same when it comes to housing. They're first priority, and nobody else's first priority. And it's just a simple truth. It's the same in any country. We would say it in Australia. If Irish people were waiting for social housing in Australia or New Zealand or wherever, I would say they should be petty last. They really should be, because they shouldn't be going to other countries looking for handouts off the state, etc. Whatever about in Ireland, they're entitled to in Ireland, but they're not entitled to it. And I say this to Irish people too. You're not entitled to it in Australia. Go out and work for it. And don't be expecting the state to provide it for you in Australia. They let you stay, that's as much as you should be thanking them for. That's all you should be asking for them. But yeah, that's just a simple truth. I'm not sitting here and saying Irish people are entitled to go across the world and ask for free stuff. No, not at all. That's not what I say. You always work with what you get. But in Ireland, you have more rights because of as an Irish citizen. You should, because you're an Irish citizen. Your grandfathers, your fathers worked to build this country by their own hands, but the laying roads, etc., with their own hands. You have more entitlement than anybody else to a house, social house. If you need it, again, if you qualify to, that's a different story for a different day. But of course, there's people getting in that not way owning far too much to get a social house, etc. But people who are vulnerable people, etc., should be getting it. People with children, particularly young couples with children that can't get on the house and that, etc. We'll talk about that different day, but that's a different story for another day, I suppose. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe and bye.